becomes a quiet moment in every human life, a moment when the noise fades and the mass begins to sleep. You feel it not in words, but in the space between them, a stillness like the air before a storm, and within that silence, something ancient stirs. It is not the voice you show the world. Oh, it is the one you've buried, the one that watches you from the dark corner of your own mind. Carl Jung called it the shadow. It is every emotion you denied, every truth you swallowed, every instinct you called wrong, because someone once told you it was unworthy. You see, the human soul is not purely light. It is a vast landscape, half illuminated, half concealed. And what we repress does not disappear. It waits. It waits behind your smile, behind your politeness, behind your need to be good, to be liked, to be enough. It hides in your envy, your rage, your secret loneliness. And it waits for one sacred thing, your attention. The tragedy is not that we have a shadow. The tragedy is that we spend our lives pretending we don't. We build identities that are safe, polished, acceptable, but hollow. We try to be angels, and in doing so, we become strangers to ourselves. And this is why, even surrounded by others, you can feel unseen. Because no one can truly see you if you've hidden half of who you are. The shadow is the unseen self, but it is also the unseen bridge. The bridge between the person you pretend to be and the person you were meant to become. Jung once said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is the beginning of awakening, not the pursuit of perfection, but the courage to meet what has been exiled. When you stop running from the darkness within, you begin to see the world differently. Every judgment softens, every wound becomes a mirror, and in that mirror you realize you were never broken, you were simply divided. The path to wholeness is not up toward light, it is inward, through the dark, and it begins the moment you stop asking, why do they not see me? And begin to ask, what part of myself have I refused to see? That question is the door. The rest of this journey is learning how to open it. Most people never open that door. They stand before it their entire lives, hearing whispers from behind it, feeling the pull of something unknown, yet fearing what they might discover if they step inside. Because to face the shadow is to face everything you've been taught to hide. From childhood, we are conditioned to be good. We are rewarded for obedience, praised for self-control, and taught that anger, jealousy, desire, and fear are signs of weakness or sin. And so, we learn to smile while suffocating, to laugh while aching, to say, I'm fine, while a storm rages underneath. Every time you silenced your own truth to avoid disapproval, you fed the shadow. Every time you said yes when your soul screamed no, you strengthened the prison of your own making. This is the great paradox of modern life. We chase freedom while running from the parts of ourselves that could grant it. We decorate our cages with comfort, distractions, affirmations, achievements. We curate our lives like art galleries, each image filtered, each flaw erased. But beneath the perfection, there is always a pulse of unrest. Have you felt it? That strange, quiet sadness that appears when everything seems fine. The kind that whispers, something is missing, that something is you. The world tells you to stay positive, to focus on the light. But light without shadow is blindness, and positivity without honesty is self-deception in disguise. We fear the darkness because we think it will consume us, but what actually consumes us is the effort to keep it buried. Repression is not peace, it is tension disguised as calm, and that tension leaks through resentment, anxiety, addiction, and the quiet collapse of meaning. We lose touch with our instincts. We lose the rawness that makes us human. We become actors in our own lives, performing a version of ourselves that feels safe, but dead. There's a reason why you sometimes feel unseen, and even by the people closest to you. It's because no one can touch what you've hidden. No one can love the parts of you that you've denied the right to exist. And yet, deep inside, that exiled self still calls out. Through your dreams, through your projections, through the things that irritate you in others. Every trigger, every envy, every judgment is your unconscious trying to return home. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The shadow speaks in symbols, not words. It appears as the faces you reject, the emotions you suppress, the patterns you repeat. And if you ignore it long enough, it begins to rule you in silence. The one who never allows themselves to feel anger becomes consumed by passive aggression. The one who hides their fear becomes obsessed with control. The one who suppresses desire eventually seeks it in secret and shame. The shadow does not disappear when denied. It grows teeth. This is why our age is filled with quiet suffering. We are surrounded by smiles, but they are brittle, ready to crack at the first touch of truth. To face the shadow is to risk breaking that mask. It means letting the mirror crack. It means saying, I am not who I pretend to be. And that confession is terrifying, but it is also the threshold. Because on the other side of that breaking lies the beginning of freedom. In the next step of this journey, we will see what happens when the light finally meets the dark. When illusion burns away and the self begins to remember its wholeness. This is the revelation. There comes a point when hiding becomes heavier than the truth. You reach for the mask and it no longer fits. The smile trembles. The performance falters. And what you once called control begins to feel like suffocation. This is where most people turn away, back into distraction, comfort, denial. But a few stay. They stand in the ruins of who they thought they were and whisper, enough. That whisper is not weakness. It is the soul remembering itself. Carl Jung called this moment individuation, the process by which a person becomes whole. And wholeness is not perfection. It is the union of opposites, light and dark, joy and sorrow, reason and instinct. To become whole is to say, yes, all of this is me. It is a kind of inner alchemy. You take what was once poison, shame, anger, envy, fear, and you transmute it into understanding. You do not destroy the shadow. You integrate it. You give it form, a voice, a seat at the table of your own being. Because the shadow is not evil, it is exiled vitality. It carries the energy you once disowned, the courage you called reckless, the power you called arrogance, the desire you called sin. It is your unlived life, waiting for acknowledgement. When you begin to face it, something remarkable happens. The monsters lose their shape. The fear begins to soften. You realize that darkness is not the absence of light. It is the cradle in which light is born. Think of a seed buried beneath the soil. It must first rot in the dark before it can rise. That decay is not death. It is transformation. Your soul works the same way. In every breakdown lies the blueprint of renewal. In every fall, a deeper ground of being. The light you seek is not above you. It's beneath the surface, in the very depths you've been taught to fear. This is why Jung said, the gold is in the dark. To encounter your shadow is to dig for that gold. You begin to see that the anger you feared was actually your buried passion. That your envy points toward your unrealized potential. That your guilt tides your longing for authenticity. The shadow speaks not to shame you, but to show you the map back to yourself. You start to notice. Your relationships shift. You no longer seek validation from others to feel real. You stop blaming the world for not seeing you, because you finally see yourself. The pain that once felt like punishment reveals itself as initiation. It was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to wake you. Every emotion you've repressed becomes a messenger. Every mistake, a teacher. Every wound, a door. The light that enters your life now is different. Not the shallow brightness of denial, but a softer glow that coexists with the dark. A wisdom born from pain. A compassion rooted in imperfection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look. That strength is not the will to dominate your shadow, but the courage to embrace it. To say, I am capable of rage, but I choose peace. I am capable of deceit, but I choose truth. I am capable of cruelty, but I choose compassion." Integration is not the destruction of darkness, it is its redemption. And when this realization dawns, you begin to see others differently. You recognize their shadows too, not as threats, but as mirrors. The judgment dissolves. Empathy replaces it, because you understand now, everyone is fighting the same invisible battle, between who they show and who they hide. And this understanding is the birth of true sight. This is the moment when you stop asking, who am I supposed to be? and begin to whisper, I am all that I am. The revelation is not a single event. It is an unfolding, a slow remembering of everything you are and everything you were meant to be. And with that remembering, a new kind of peace begins to bloom. Not the fragile calm of suppression, but the steady quiet of inner alignment. This is the beginning of transformation, where the shadow no longer rules from the dark, but walks beside you in the light. To integrate the shadow is not to tame it, but to learn its language, and the first word it speaks is honesty. Transformation begins the moment you stop lying to yourself, when you can look at your reflection and see both the saint and the sinner, the creator and the destroyer, the gentle and the cruel, and not flinch. The work of self-awareness is not glamorous. It is quiet, humbling, often painful. It happens in the ordinary hours, in the arguments that reveal your pride, in the envy that exposes your longing, in the silence after failure when your identity falls apart. This is where true strength is forged, not in dominance, but in humility. Jung wrote, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." Your roots, your shadow, are what anchor you. They give your light substance, weight, and truth. Without them, you become untethered, drifting in false positivity, confusing denial for peace. To live with integrity is to live in dialogue with both halves of your nature. You listen to your shadow without obeying it. You acknowledge the impulse, but choose the conscious act. That is maturity, to feel the storm without becoming the storm. So how do we practice this integration? Not as theory, but as daily life. It begins with awareness. Notice the moments when emotion surges and judgment follows. Pause before you project it outward. Ask yourself, what part of me is speaking right now? Anger may be guarding your vulnerability. Pride may be hiding your shame. Envy may be pointing toward an unlived dream. In that pause lies freedom. For the first time, you are not reacting, you are observing, and what is observed can be transformed. Then comes courage, the willingness to bring light into the dark. This means confronting what you fear will make others reject you. Your selfishness, your lust, your bitterness, your insecurities. But when you dare to face them with compassion, they lose their tyranny. The monsters shrink when named. Next comes humility. Integration requires admitting, I am not purely good, and yet I am not purely bad. I am both, and that is what makes me human. Humility is the bridge that allows the conscious self to meet the unconscious. It says, I do not know all of me, but I am willing to learn. In relationships, this understanding changes everything. Instead of blaming others for your wounds, you begin to see what those wounds are trying to reveal. You stop demanding that others complete you, because you are no longer divided against yourself. Love deepens when it is no longer based on illusion. You can love someone not because they make you feel whole, but because you recognize their wholeness, now and their wounds, as mirrors of your own. Leadership changes too. You stop needing to appear flawless. You lead not through authority, but through authenticity. People trust those who have met their own darkness, because such people no longer need to hide behind power, and solitude transforms from loneliness into sanctuary. You can finally be alone without fear, because you have made peace with the company within you. This is not an easy path. It is cyclical, not linear. There will be times when you regress, when the shadow takes the wheel again. But each time you return to awareness, you come back wiser, calmer, truer. The alchemist's furnace is repetition. Every fall becomes a refining fire, and slowly the fragments of who you were begin to fuse into something whole. You realize that the shadow was never your enemy. It was your guide, the dark companion leading you toward self-understanding. To integrate it is to step into quiet power, a power that needs no dominance, because it is rooted in authenticity. Marcus Aurelius said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Now, you understand. The same is true within. The pain was never the shadow itself. It was your resistance to seeing it. Once you stop resisting, the darkness becomes your teacher. And when that happens, life begins to move differently. Every challenge becomes an initiation. Every loss, an unveiling. Every encounter, a mirror. You no longer chase freedom, you embody it. Because freedom is not the absence of darkness, but the integration of it. The light you carry now is steady, unforced, silent, the kind that does not blind but reveals. And from this place of awareness, the final realization emerges, not of triumph, but of peace. At the end of the long descent, after the masks have fallen and the noise of the world has faded into distance, what remains is a silence, not empty, but full. It is the silence of seeing yourself clearly for the first time. No longer divided, no longer chasing some ideal image of what you should be. Simply here, present, whole. The journey through the shadow does not make you perfect, it makes you real. You begin to live not from fear, but from presence. Not from the need to impress, but from the quiet knowing of who you are. There is a strange peace in this simplicity. You stop needing to explain yourself. You stop demanding that others understand you, because you finally understand yourself. And with that, something subtle shifts. The world that once seemed blind to you now mirrors your own gaze. You begin to see beauty not because it changed, but because you did. Carl Jung believed that what we call fate is often the unconscious striving for wholeness. What we resist returns to us in disguised forms, as people, as conflicts, as patterns, until we face it with awareness. When you integrate your shadow, you stop running from your fate and begin to participate in it. You no longer fight life, you move with it. Pain becomes not an enemy, but a messenger. Loneliness becomes a teacher. And darkness, the very thing you once feared, becomes sacred ground. The soul does not seek comfort, it seeks truth. And truth is not gentle, but it is liberating. You realize that every part of you was longing to be seen. Even the brokenness, even the anger, even the shame. They were never your prisons. They were the unlit rooms of your own house, waiting for your return. When you finally walk through them with open eyes, you find that nothing inside you was ever your enemy. Only the unloved needed your love. Only the unseen needed your light. And as you offer that light inward, it begins to radiate outward. Not through grand gestures, but through presence. The quiet grace of someone who is no longer at war with themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. When your thoughts are reconciled with your depths, life itself feels different. Time slows. Moments feel fuller. Even sorrow has its beauty, because it no longer threatens you. You have become both student and teacher, darkness and dawn. You no longer seek light, you are the light, precisely because you have known the dark. And so, when others look at you and say, 'You seem peaceful,' you'll know it isn't because you've escaped pain. It's because you've stopped escaping yourself. This is the quiet miracle of wholeness. You do not shine because you've been purified. You shine because you've been integrated. And in that glow, there is no need for applause, no need for recognition. You are seen, not by the world but by your own soul. So when night falls again, as it always will, you will not fear it. You will walk calmly into the dark, knowing it too belongs to you, because freedom is not found in the absence of shadow. It is found in walking with it, hand in hand into the light of understanding. And in that moment, the world finally sees you, because you are no longer hiding, because you finally see yourself. The shadow was never the enemy. It was the gate to true freedom.